process that will determine the next leader of the Conservative Party has come to a close. MPs have whittled the number of contenders down to two. One, Boris Johnson, and Jeremy Hunt will be the UK's next Prime Minister.
Well, it is now up to the Conservative Party's members to decide between the pair over the next month. There are about 160,000 of them. Mostly they're over 55 years old. They're predominantly white. They're wealthier than most voters. Alex Forsyth has been speaking to party members in the village of Corn near Loughborough.
As this leadership race steams ahead, attention's turning to the Tory members who'll make the final call. For some in Loughborough, today's first result
Cedric Jarrett, 34.
was no great surprise.
It's a good choice. It's a balanced choice.
None of us were surprised when Rory Stewart went, and today none of us were surprised when Sadge went.
And as thoughts turn to the final two, we join the local Tories for a trip on the town's Great Central Railway. Surrounded by memories of the past, they considered who's right for the country's future.
I just want somebody that's going to unify a party and ideally Parliament.
Sarah had been supportive of Jeremy Hunt.
Originally was a Remainer, but I do respect the result of the decision of the referendum. So now would like Brexit resolved, and I think Hunt has a clear strategy for that. And then going forward, I would like someone who's capable of being Prime Minister, and then I would want a proven track record in high ministerial office.
Brexit is, of course, on most minds. Trevor did want Michael Gove in the final two.
And Brexit is moving and nothing else is. So that's got to be resolved, because we've got to pick all these issues up and we've got to get back to governing the country.
And what of the firm front-runner?
I think Boris is definitely the man to lead us. I think a lot of people seem to think he's clueless, but I think he's far from clueless. He's the man to bring us forward, to get the act together. He's got the full support of a lot of MPs, and that's what a leader needs.
I do accept that Boris, in many ways, is very attractive at leading, but I do not want to become obsessed with the Brexit Party or the far-left Labour Party. I want those people in the middle to feel that at the end of the day, compromise is possible and there is a way through.
So is Boris Johnson a shoo-in for this job now?
I don't think anyone can be a shoo-in for the job, but I think there seems this sense of inevitability. If I was a betting person, I would say my bet would be on Johnson. That's not necessarily where my vote will necessarily go.
But with many members, he is popular, and they'll make the final decision. We'll see whose campaign stays on track. Alex Forsyth, BBC News, Loughborough.
Well, let's speak now to a couple more Conservative Party members, both of them with a vote in the leadership contest. Kanwal Kaur is in Reading. She's supporting Boris Johnson, like many others, we suspect. Johnny Cope was supporting Michael Gove, but is now undecided. He's in our London newsroom. Johnny Cope, I wonder if I can start with you. What's the factor that will most determine who you give your vote to?
Well, obviously, firstly to say, I was supporting Michael Gove. I'm very disappointed that he didn't make the final two. So I'm now sort of in a position where I'm genuinely undecided between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt. What I'm really looking for is the person who, firstly, is going to set out a plan of how they're going to achieve Brexit and their preferred Brexit outcome. And secondly, how they're going to reach out to voters who won't necessarily traditionally vote Conservative, and particularly those in the centre ground who may be feeling a little bit of animosity towards us at the moment.
Kanwal, can your man, Boris Johnson,
Yes.
actually unite the party? Because he is pretty divisive.
Okay.
Kanwal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry. Yes.
That's all right. I was just asking, can your man, Boris Johnson, actually unite the party?
Yes, absolutely. Look, first of all, what I'd like to say is that the Conservative Party has done a great job. The party has presented us with some very, very high caliber leadership candidates. Now, obviously, the whole race has come down to Boris and Jeremy, and I definitely feel Boris is the man who's going to take us to the finish line, because he's going to bring all of us together, and that is the important thing at this point in time.
But Kanwal, I wonder, I mean, Boris Johnson, he's not quite being clear on whether he will definitely take Britain out of the European Union if he became leader on October the 31st, which is the date set at the moment. Does that date matter to you?
Look, he is a man with a plan, as they say. He's very certain that we have to have a very timely, orderly Brexit. I don't think at any point of time he's guaranteed that October is going to be the time, and I don't even think that is going to be legally viable or possible. But he's the man who's going to take us out in an orderly and timely fashion, and that is why we have all got to unite behind this man and make sure that he leads the country and he leads the party.
Johnny, is the October deadline important to you?
I think it's not vital to me, if I'm honest. I think we need to leave the European Union and we need to do it as quickly as possible. But I think setting this artificial date of we're definitely going to leave by the 31st of October isn't really necessary. I mean, I think Michael Gove, and I also think Jeremy Hunt has said as well, if it's the 29th, 30th of October, we're very close to a deal, there's been some movement, we're not going to just tear it all up for the sake of a couple of weeks. I think what I would say is there needs to have been some serious progress towards a deal that's acceptable to both parties by the 31st of October, and if that progress hasn't been made, then we do need to be prepared to leave with no deal.
And can I ask both of you, Kanwal then Johnny, which of the two do you believe can keep the Conservatives in power?
So like I said, it is going to be Boris. I have been a former deputy chair of the Conservative Association in Beaconsfield. I have often had dinners and lunches in the last few weeks with the grassroots people around here, and they've vociferously, unanimously said that Boris is the guy they would vote for, and that is the one they should have as a leader.
Same to you, Johnny.
Well, I think for me, they both can beat Jeremy Corbyn. They're both very effective politicians. They both got a lot behind them. I mean, you look at Boris's record as Mayor of London, made some difficult decisions and made a really positive impact on our capital city. You look at Jeremy Hunt, the time that he spent as Health Secretary, getting through some quite controversial things, but he got them through. I think they both can beat Jeremy Corbyn. But for me, what I'm looking for is which one of them's got the clearer plan to deliver Brexit. Because in order to beat Jeremy Corbyn, we need to deliver Brexit before the next general election, and I want to see the mechanics of how each of them propose to do that.
Yeah, look, I'm looking beyond
Johnny.
that. Sorry.
Keep going, Kanwal. Keep going.
Sorry, I was saying I'm looking beyond just Brexit, and so are the other sort of people that I know in Beaconsfield and other parts of the country that I've sort of moved around in. They're looking beyond Brexit now. Obviously, everyone's looking for an orderly Brexit, but what else can the candidate or the leader offer? And Boris will be able to offer slightly more than Jeremy, I guess, and he's the one who's going to win us the elections. And like you said, keep Jeremy Corbyn out of number 10.
I mean, just to come back on that, I completely agree with Kanwal that we do need to look beyond Brexit, but the simple fact of the matter is we can't look beyond Brexit until we deliver Brexit. Until Brexit happens, it's always going to be the key factor in our politics, and if we don't deliver Brexit effectively, Jeremy Corbyn is going to have a very good chance to become the Prime Minister, and that's something that terrifies me and terrifies a lot of people in this country.
And that's exactly what Boris Johnson is offering.
So what I'd say I'm looking for Kanwal is his plan. What I haven't heard from him, and to be fair, I haven't particularly heard from Jeremy Hunt, is how they're actually going to deliver Brexit, and that's what I'm looking for in the coming weeks. I'm going to watch the hustings. I'm going to listen to what they've got to say, and my vote is very much up for grabs.
Johnny Cope, Kanwal Tour, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, as we've mentioned, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is here in Washington today, meeting with President Trump and congressional leaders. The new North American Trade Pact, which Mexico's Senate approved this week, is at the top of the agenda.
Mr. Trudeau says that Canada is ready to follow suit, but the pact faces uncertainty in the US Congress, where some senior Democrats are raising objections. Donald Trump insists it is a good deal for everyone.
It really is. It shows a partnership between three countries. And it's sort of three countries in a trade sense. We're competing with the European Union, we're competing with China. It gives us a bigger dialogue, it gives us a much bigger platform. It's really good for all three.
Well, I'm joined now by Roland Paris, Professor of International Affairs at the University of Ottawa and former Foreign Policy Advisor to Justin Trudeau. Thank you for joining us. How confident is Canada that this pact will be passed by Congress? Because it's significant that Mr. Trudeau will be meeting congressional leaders today.
Yeah, Mr. Trudeau is, as we speak, meeting with Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and I'm sure he's sharing with her his view that the pact as it currently stands, as it has been negotiated, is a very good one, and that Canada supports its ratification. The Democrats have been negotiating with the White House. They're continuing to negotiate with the White House, and Canada certainly hopes that those negotiations will come to a conclusion quickly so that we can get this new deal ratified.
But can Canada actually trust the US, and more specifically Donald Trump, as a trading partner, bearing in mind what happened to Mexico just a week or so ago, when tariffs were threatened over immigration policy?
Well, we all know that Trump is an unpredictable actor. Today's meeting seems to be going well, but presidential tweets are themselves unpredictable. But all other things being equal, it's better to have a concluded trade agreement than not to have a concluded trade agreement. It would certainly add confidence to our business community and businesses in North America who have cross-border operations. So it's in Canada's interest to see this trade agreement ratified by all three countries, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister is sharing that with congressional leaders, and this is something that Trump and Trudeau now have in common. It's one of the reasons why they seem to be getting along much better than they did a year ago, for example.
But there is an issue, is there not, that is causing tension between Canada and America, and that is Huawei. The Canadians got drawn into the American-Chinese spat over trade when they arrested, under American instructions, American request, a senior Huawei executive. And I wonder what Trudeau might be trying to get from Trump on that.
Oh, I'm sure that Trudeau is asking Trump to personally press this issue with President Xi of China. This is a major issue in this country. China has, by all appearances, arbitrarily arrested 2 Canadian citizens in retaliation for Ms. Meng's detention on a U.S. extradition request. I'm sure that Mr. Trudeau will be impressing on President Trump that Canada is paying the price for fulfilling the terms of the extradition deal with the United States. And there are some positive signs. Mr. Trump, when he met publicly with Trudeau at the beginning of their meeting, was asked by media whether he would speak up for the 2 Canadians who had been detained, and he said that he would do so if the Prime Minister asked him to. Well, I can guarantee you that when they went into their private meeting, the Prime Minister will have asked him to.
And more broadly on Huawei, I mean, I'm fascinated to know, obviously the Americans are concerned about Huawei perhaps being used by the Chinese state to spy on people around the world. The British government is taking a slightly different line. The Canadian government's been taking a line more similar to London, and I wonder whether that is ultimately going to create tension between Canada and the United States, that issue.
It may eventually. Right now, Canada's in the midst of a national security review of Huawei in relation to the 5G network, just as Britain has been. And I think that the Prime Minister is likely saying to Mr. Trump that this review is continuing. We're all clear on what the U.S. position is, and for the moment, I think that the issue is probably parked in the discussions between Canada and the United States until the outcome of the Canadian review is clear. But it'll certainly be an issue, and there's very few outcomes of that review that won't cause problems one way or another with the Americans or the Chinese or both.
Roland Paris, thank you very much for joining us.